Andy is the cheesemaker behind Pleasant Ridge Reserve and Rush Creek. They have this incredible operation that includes, pasture grazing, taking the milk, and then creating the most awarded cheese in American history. Is that correct?
That's what they say.
That's
I'll
what they
leave that
say,
to
right?
them. I don't keep track.
First and foremost, how has this COVID situation affected Uplands?
Well, what is it, July 15th? So it's been 3 months. It's been a really difficult 3 months. And I mean, to be fair, I should put that into, a larger perspective and say that, our family has been healthy and safe. Everybody on the farm has been healthy and safe. So we've not, I think, lived with some of the daily personal fear and pain that people in New York have, and we see that. I mean, our customers are in large part in the cities around the country, and so I know what those people are going through. We're lucky we haven't gone through that. Our challenges have really been figuring out how to navigate the storm in terms of cash flow, to put it bluntly. Sales took a big hit. How do you continue to operate your business with less money? And so that puts pressure on us in all sorts of ways. And we've proven to be resilient, and we've impressed ourselves in some ways so far. It's also exposed some vulnerabilities. The feeling at this stage is a little bit of weariness, laced with optimism.
Sure.
That could be a cocktail. I would take...
It's what I'm actually drinking right here. The weariness laced with optimism. Talk to me about, some of the vulnerabilities. What have you uncovered in this process?
Yeah. There's that old Warren Buffett saying, when the tide goes out, you find out who's been swimming naked.
Sure.
We weren't naked, but maybe our drawers weren't cinched as tightly as they could have been. We had a significant amount of sales to restaurants, mm-hmm. which in normal circumstances I see as a strength. Our kind of outlets for selling cheese are sort of specialty independent shops, say grocery stores, restaurants, and then direct to consumers, largely through our website. And we were spread fairly evenly, but we've lost a third of our sales. And I would have told you, 4 or 5 months ago, restaurants were 25% of our sales. And so I really think, those have disappeared. Potentially another vulnerability, and again, who could have foreseen the circumstances? But, we are I think a cheese that people look to when celebrating special occasions or giving themselves some small indulgence, mm-hmm. Like a nice bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne, so in that sense we're niche, and I think when people went into kind of panic buying mode, those are the kinds of expenses that got cut.
Yeah. Talk about the resiliencies then. What do you got going on?
Supply chains all over the country broke. Yeah. Our supply chain is right here. I mean,
yeah, it's literally right there.
Yes, and so we raise our own cows, produce our own milk. There was a lot of comfort in knowing that at least our fate was in our hands on that side of things. And sure enough, we had a wonderful spring. And production-wise, things have gone really well. So I think whereas a lot of businesses were really threatened, not only were they having trouble selling, but having trouble producing, I think our model, showed that sometimes being small and independent and owner-operated is a strength and a resiliency. I also think being small and nimble I don't know how many times you've heard the word pivot in the last 3 months, but that'll be the one time I say it.
You sure?
Thank you. We were able to adjust pretty quickly,
Yeah.
trim costs, shift sales strategies, get on the phone to our important customers. So I think that was a strength. And those are two interesting examples because being small scale and vertically integrated is, I think, traditionally seen as a weakness, certainly in the commodity markets, because we're not as efficient as the big low cost producers. But among a lot of interesting discussions that have circled around the pandemic, and I don't mean to sound dispassionate about the human pain that is, we're all in the midst of, but taken from a just purely theoretical view, it's been pretty interesting to see. And so one of the interesting conversations I've been sort of attuned to is how our way of thinking about running businesses really fails to recognize the strength of resiliency. And I've read a couple articles about how our medical system really didn't build in resiliency. It was so focused on low cost, running lean, being as efficient as possible. And, we're both process guys, food producers, like we love efficiency, but, and it's easy to measure efficiency. It's very difficult to measure resiliency. And, so I feel like our unit, our farm has shown a certain amount of resiliency. And, to the extent that we sell cheese locally and to neighbors, which is true to a certain extent. That model, that regional food distribution model, also showed some strength. We also sell cheese on the coasts, distributors, refrigerated trucks to warehouses, to secondary distributors, and those systems broke down. Madison, Milwaukee, delivering locally, did really well. Shipping FedEx direct to people's homes, people who place orders on our websites, did really well. So I think there were also some encouraging signs for those elements too.
And I think that kind of, in 2008, in the Great Recession, at the start of the Great Recession, there were numbers released that indicated that, in times of financial setback, people actually start, traveling and exploring their local surroundings as opposed to, the destination vacations. Or right now how, Americans at outdoor retailers are up 70% this year right now. You can't find motorhomes. You can't get a reservation at state parks or national parks because everyone is kind of re-exploring their immediate surroundings. And I think that there is value and strength in that. I know that, we see that at the cafe, and I know that our numbers are a lot better than a lot of our colleagues' numbers in cities with restaurants. But I think the question that kind of sits on my heart in talking to you, Pleasant Ridge has been this iconic product for Wisconsin. And I think, let's say in the last 10, 15 years, your face and this cheese and this farm have been the epitome of a small dairy and who we are as the dairy state. What has COVID done to that identity? Has it affected that at all? Has it affected the dairy industry as a whole in a way that it can never go back to being the same?
That's an interesting question, and I mean, it's a timely question. I think not only for the pandemic circumstances, but when also in terms of looking forward. When things break down, it's always a chance to ask ourselves, well, how should we rebuild it? And the breaking down of our state's dairy industry, started, well, you could argue that, but certainly the last 2 or 3 years have been brutal. And so this question has already been asked and Tammy Baldwin, to give credit where credit is due, has been asking this question for several years and has started to bring home some federal money to inject grants and supporting funds into the dairy industry to try to stimulate more value-added production. And so people around the state, and I suppose around the country, have been coming to us to look at our model and ask, how can we replicate this? Not that we do everything perfectly, but like you said, we're an example of a small farm that's managed to, work outside of the commodity market and add value to our milk in a way that's proven, where this is our 20th anniversary. So it's proven to be sustainable. So those conversations started before the pandemic, and I was on another conference call yesterday with people from the state trying to figure out how to distribute these funds and encourage more businesses like ours. I think there's something to be learned from businesses like ours, and people realize that now more than ever.
Sure. Do you ever have concerns that the culture of dairy that's been alive here for the last 150 years, or since Wisconsin became a state in 1848, is ever in jeopardy of being homogenized?
Yes, oh, absolutely, and it's happening. I have no personal authority on the subject. I didn't grow up milking cows, and I think that's one of the things that gives me a different perspective on the industry. Is that, I'm not wed mentally to the way Dad did it. I know it's being lost, and that's been true for 50, 60 years. We had community threshing crews, and I mean there's some beautiful traditions, and you know what, they change, and I think that's inevitable. I guess I'm more interested in figuring out how we can create new bonds than preserving the old ones. I think you got to concentrate on preserving the themes of these bonds. People working closely with the land, people taking care of the land, people taking care of the animal, people taking care of each other and their neighbors. I'm typically kind of a nostalgic guy, but I think when it comes to the dairy industry, we've time to look forward.
Yeah.
And what we've been doing is not working.
Right.
For most people.
How does Uplands do business going forward?
To be honest, in largely the same way we have in the past, because we are a wholesale business.
Okay.
We are not public facing for the most part. You've always been able to stop by our farm and buy a piece of cheese, and that continues, but now you're going to pick it up in a cooler that sits out front of the creamery instead of coming into the office and chit-chatting and having us cut but by and large our business is shipping cheese to people, and so that's pretty much going to continue uninterrupted, and for that I feel lucky that we've not had to completely reinvent ourselves. But as a larger, longer term question, how are we going to adapt and adjust? There's some interesting ideas in that, how retail behavior in general is going to shift, and
yeah. So a question that I've been kind of popping on a lot of restaurateurs, but you're so connected to food and food culture in Wisconsin and in America in general. What will it mean for you to go out to dinner after this?
Ugh.
If it's we decide our families, Caitlin, Ruthie, you and I are going to go to dinner. Is the symbolism in that completely changed?
Assuming that we're able to relax out at dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it'll feel just giddy. And food is a lot of things: sustenance, a livelihood, relationship with the land and animals. But it's also how we get together as as people, and so we feel that loss for sure. Personally, in our house, we feel that loss, and we can feel it out with our cheese. And going out into the world, we feel that it's not happening, and that's sad. So when it comes back online, I just think it's going to feel giddy.
Yeah.
And gosh, I hope it's timed with Rush Creek, which is such a giddy time. It's such a cheese that's meant for sharing anyway.
Yep. Admittedly, I was on social media last night, and I've got a cousin who's a Lutheran pastor over in Iowa, and he had a gif of someone like chopping the soft cheese like a brie and like scraping it because it was half melted onto this plate of fries. And his comment underneath it, or the headline on his Facebook post was, "I can't wait to do this with Rush Creek." And from there the conversation dissolved into like, yes, I actually love Rush Creek so much that I would take a bath in it, and like it went down
The
this
usual stuff.
yeah, exactly, this crazy social media rabbit hole. But what is the outlook for Rush Creek?
Uncertain. The challenge of holding any inventory, in this uncertain economic time is that it's going to spoil, or that you're going to have all your money tied up in inventory. And for a cheese like Pleasant Ridge that can age 1 year, 2 years, the risk to cheese quality is not that great. We can endure some months of slow sales. The cheese probably will get better as it gets older. Rush Creek, very short window of sale. I mean, that's a cherry blossom of a cheese. You have a moment when it's ready, and then it's gone. So for us to be left holding cheese that people don't want to buy is a scary proposition.
Yeah.
So there are, a number of months between now and Rush Creek season. It feels like things are changing pretty quickly these days. So I'm going to withhold any, exact predictions.
Yeah.
But that cheese has always had more demand than we can supply. And so one way we've dealt with that is by selling it through pre-order. So in fact, you have to, if you're a shop or a restaurant, you have to order your Rush Creek months in advance.
Yep.
So that will be an interesting moment. Typically that happens in September. What will the confidence level of buyers be like in September, anticipating December sales? It's going to be difficult for them. But it'll give us a window into how people are feeling, and I think we'll make according to that. But we are planning on making it, and my hope, and I talked about this earlier, is how food can give us, the feeling of comfort and even indulgence and special occasion. It can do all of these things, even in our own homes. And so I really think that Rush Creek could have an incredible season, even if people aren't able to go out and enjoy it in restaurants.
Sure.
That opening a Rush Creek at home, it can still feel like a big deal, a little extravagance. And
It's a ceremony.
it is, and it takes sharing, and it takes eating a little bit more than you thought you were going to. All those things that we want to do in November and December, that we've earned the right to do, are still going to happen in people's homes. Let's hope they happen in restaurants and in people's homes. But either way, Rush Creek will be there, and it's become an emotional product for us because it's an emotional product for our customers, and I think that has something to do with the character of the cheese, and also a lot to do with the time of year. And so this year more than any, we're either going to be ready to rock it in November and December, or we're going to be ready to tighten the huddle, be home, and be like, all right, guys, we made it through.
Yeah.
We're going into the holidays, in our bubble, and let's still share something special. So,
Yeah. That every beautiful and significant family occasion that I have around the holidays, that cheese is there. And honestly, I can't imagine a holiday season without it, frankly. It's that synonymous with the ceremony and the tradition in our house of communing and celebration. And I guess, maybe even if the forecast... Have you considered pivoting into a bathtub full of Rush Creek? Because from what I'm gathering on social media, there may be a market for it.
You haven't seen our video, have you?
No. Is it a bathtub of Rush Creek?
I'll show it to you when it's done. It is a large pile of Rush Creek.
Yes.
In the early years, when
Sure.
we were still fine-tuning the recipe, there were large piles.
Oh, well, I hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does, give me a call.
I know who to call.
Yeah, exactly. If people want to be able to better support the farm, how do they do that?
With their dollars. I mean, to be blunt about it. And either by going onto our website and ordering direct from us, which we love, and we do a lot of. We'll send it right to your house or anywhere in the country as a gift. Or support your cheese shops.
Sure.
I mean, that is the business we're in predominantly, is selling to cheese shops. And so please, support those stores. They've had as difficult of a time as anybody here. And a lot of them have their own mail order programs. The tagline, as I've said, is choose it or lose it. Support the producers and the businesses you value now, or the next time you go to look, we might not be there.
Yeah.
I mean, for so many of us, that's the reality. We're on the ropes.
And I got to say, I think that hits... Man, that hits me square in the heart, given the fact that this cheese and the identity of this farm is one of the pieces that people know about us nationally. They do. This is something that I've found in restaurants all up and down the East Coast and on the West Coast. It's this cheese. It's a symbol of us. And if you don't choose it and we lose it, it's hard to get that space back.
Yeah, and let's embrace that pride in our products. Our cheese, yes, but also all the other companies that in Wisconsin that make products that help us create our identity. Send those as gifts this holiday season. If you're a small business that sends gifts to your customers, call me. We'll send gift boxes for you. These are the kinds of orders we need to bridge this.
Yeah.
To get through, and don't wait, because it's now or never for a lot of us.
Go to the website, find the phone number, send an email, call. Whatever you can do. Help us weather the storm.